All right. Well, welcome, friends. Again, I'm Lynn Kilborn, the Vice President of Development for the Methodist Foundation for Arkansas, and it is a joy to welcome you to this month's Learning Zoom, where we're having a Dementia Friends Training with our friends at Alzheimer's Arkansas. I'm very pleased to welcome our guest presenter, Kimberly Kinder. She is the Interim Executive Director of Alzheimer's Arkansas. She has been serving in this role for the past 2 months, but she has a 5-year history with Alzheimer's Arkansas. I asked Kimberly, I said, Kimberly, is there any chance that you are a member of a United Methodist Church? And she is a faithful member of Second Baptist Church, downtown Little Rock, who has been a wonderful partner with many ministries and opportunities in Central Arkansas. So we said, you're not United Methodist, but we are still so honored and thrilled to welcome you as a person of faith, and also thrilled to welcome you for the work that you are doing in Alzheimer's Arkansas, and grateful to have you, Kimberly, with us this morning to share this very important training with us. So, with that being said, I'm now going to hand it over to Kimberly to lead us in this morning's Zoom training.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'll tell you a little bit about myself to start out, just so there's a little history. I'm a physical therapist by trade, and I've worked in the geriatric community for over 20 years. I did transition to some medical device sales and just didn't find my passion in that. And so I spent the last 5 years volunteering with Alzheimer's Arkansas and helping them get all of their caregiver workshops off the ground, speaking for them, traveling around the state, that sort of thing. And when the time came that they needed a little bit of help, they asked me to help out. So I've stepped in as interim executive director, and I'm having a lot of fun with it and really enjoying the opportunity to get to know people on a different level through this organization. But this morning, something near and dear to my heart is I wanted to share this. I was asked by Lynn to share that what we really want is for our communities to be able to understand dementia, what it is, see the signs, and help our fellow not just parishioners within the church, but just communities through that in the public. So we're dementia friendly. We want everyone to be dementia friendly. We do this as a partnership with the Arkansas Geriatric Education Collaboration through UAMS. So I'll get started. I will tell you, I'll go back to these slides at the end if you would like to do a survey and a knowledge assessment to just kind of go over what you learned during this. And I'll go back to those slides at the end. But our mission statement here at Alzheimer's Arkansas is to create a compassionate, welcoming, and restorative community for family caregivers across the state who are caring for those with dementia, chronic illness, and debilitating disease. And the AGEC's mission is to provide high quality programs to support healthy aging in Arkansas. They're funded through Health Resources and Services Administration, so they're a government funded entity. We are, however, a nonprofit. And our goal is to support family caregivers. All of our money stays in the state of Arkansas, and all that goes toward caregivers of those who have been diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, or other chronic diseases. So today, what we'd like to learn about really is we're going to describe dementia so that you know the most common types. Alzheimer's is dementia. It's just a form of dementia. Understanding the 5 key messages. And then we're going to understand the 10 early signs and symptoms of dementia, learn how to effectively communicate with a person living with dementia, and choose a small action as a dementia friend in your community. So people living with dementia, they need to understand and be supported in their communities. So we're helping everyone to become a dementia friend. And so that is so many things, from when you enter a business, especially if someone has dementia and their family members may be unaware and they're still out and about, recognizing signs and symptoms. Even within your own community, sometimes you may need to be supportive to a friend, or you may recognize these things because their family's not around a lot, but it can affect their health care, their ability to remember to take medications, their ability to stay in their own home, ability to just buy groceries. So there's so much that dementia does affect throughout your life. So what is dementia? It's not a single disease. So it's really important to understand that, like, if you have heart disease, then we treat the heart and we have medication for that. But oftentimes dementia goes hand in hand with other comorbidities, is what we call that, but other diseases. And so it's a very general term, but it's abnormal changes to the brain. So the cells in the brain, something changes that in within that. And then it interferes with the ability for the brain to communicate. So those cells within the brain can't get the signal where it needs to go. So that triggers a decline in thinking skills, which we call cognitive abilities. Oftentimes you'll hear that they have executive level functioning decline. And then also it really changes things to start to affect behavior, feelings, and relationships. And a lot of times that's what you'll notice is someone starts to be angry or upset and it doesn't seem to make sense. So Alzheimer's, while it is the most common form of dementia, like I said, it is just a dementia at the end of the day. But it is noted as Alzheimer's disease. About 70% of dementias are Alzheimer's. If you are not familiar with the other forms of dementia, Lewy body has some really very distinct characteristics that we will talk about. Frontotemporal dementia, vascular dementia, those are both that are structural changes within the brain. And so it's really just an umbrella term that dementia describes all of these things. And this just shows you kind of how those what the percentages are. Alzheimer's being the vast majority, and frontotemporal is not extremely common, especially in the aging population. Vascular dementia is quite common, unfortunately, and that is truly what it sounds like. The vascularization in the brain is damaged and is no longer getting blood where it needs to go. So these are the estimates, the newest estimates for Alzheimer's disease overall. The percentage of adults aged 65 and older with Alzheimer's disease, and you see that by race and ethnicity that there is some differences in that. So you are more predisposed to dementias and Alzheimer's based on some factors like race. And so from 2014, we had about 5 million people in the US diagnosed with Alzheimer's. The estimation is by 2060, there'll be about 14 million. And I think it's important to note here that there is the component of a much larger aging population. It doesn't entirely indicate that the rise of Alzheimer's is just more diagnoses. So, in other words, if you compared the populations by number and you made that direct comparison, it wouldn't be that Alzheimer's is more prevalent. It's just that we have way more people that are 65 and older, and will continue to have more people in that age range. So the 5 key messages that we're going to go over, dementia is not a normal part of aging. And oftentimes people will see their primary care physician and they'll have some concerns. And a lot of times it's, oh, that's just normal. You just forget things. We forget things as we get older. It's important to differentiate just forgetting things and what dementia really looks like. It is disease, it is caused by diseases of the brain. So there's something going on in the brain that is going wrong, not just, I've just got so many things to remember, I can't remember all the things. And it's not just about having memory problems. It is possible to have a good quality of life with dementia, and there's more to a person than just their dementia. All right, dementia is not a normal part of aging. It is caused by diseases of the brain. It is not just about having memory problems. It is possible to have a good quality of life with dementia, and there's more to a person than the dementia. Those are key components to really remember through this. Let me see if this video will play. This is about our Dementia Friends portion of things.
I'm not sure that we are able to hear the video,
Oh,
Kimberly.
no. Yeah, sometimes the audio doesn't translate.
Okay.
So I apologize. I can send that.
Okay.
Let me
How
get
good is everybody at reading lips?
let me get us to the next. And that's a video as well. So I'm going to skip it if you guys aren't able to hear it. So we'll move past that. It really is just going over people's how they were diagnosed, kind of how they're dealing with it, and that sort of thing. So the image that you see on the screen now is really a healthy brain versus advanced Alzheimer's. If you're familiar with Alzheimer's, you know that there are plaques that deposit in the brain, and those plaques just build up and cause the brain to deteriorate over time. So complex thinking. So executive functioning is things like balancing your checkbook, making multi-step decisions. So if you want to cook a meal, you need to get the bread out of the bread bag, for instance, put it in the toaster, then get it out, then put your condiments on, then put your meat and your cheese, make a sandwich, for example. That's too many steps. All of that executive function is what starts to fall away. Emotions and feelings do remain longer, especially, you know, recognition of having those emotions, not always recognition of what they're toward. And then these are some normal aging versus 10 early signs and symptoms. It is normal to forget names and appointments sometimes. That's why we have a calendar. I've had a calendar for years. If you work and you do things, you're not going to remember everything. But if that disrupts your daily life every single day and you can't remember any of your appointments, it's a very different thing. Making occasional errors when you balance a checkbook, math errors, those are normal. But if you have challenges in planning or solving problems in general, those become, signs that there may be something more going on. Needing occasional help to use settings on a microwave or a TV, especially more complex things, especially as uh, those of us that didn't grow up with a lot of these things, then they're a little bit foreign to us. That's totally normal. But if it's a familiar task you've been doing over and over for years at work or, just for fun, then that's an indication something is not right. If you're confused about the day of the week, but recall it later, we've all thought, oh my goodness, it's Wednesday, but it's really Tuesday. That's normal, but confusion with time or place. So that, part of asking if someone's alert and oriented and they ask them questions sometimes like who's the president or do you know where you are? And not being able to say, maybe they say, I think that the president's Jimmy Carter. Those kinds of things, just not being oriented to normal time and place. Then vision changes related to cataracts, extremely normal, but trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. So that is, seeing something on a screen and then not being able to understand what it truly is, not being able to compute all of that together. It's one of the reasons you'll find that people, as they have dementia that advances, they're less interested. They're disinterested in watching television or reading and things like that. Sometimes having trouble finding the right word. We all have word finding issues. And then if they have new problems with words in speaking or writing, though, and it usually is a family member, someone close to this person that's going to notice these things. Misplacing things from time to time because I set my keys down somewhere I don't normally put them, but misplacing and losing things all the time, or they can't retrace their steps. So if I lay my keys in a different spot, I can think, okay, I came in, what did I do? Oh, I was in a hurry and I laid my keys on the counter. I don't put them there normally. Making a bad decision once in a while is normal. Decreased or poor judgment is abnormal, and this will show up in things like we'll see a lot of financial changes, not paying the bills on time where they always did, or writing the wrong amount, or oftentimes this results in being scammed out of money, things like that. Sometimes feeling weary of work, family, and social obligations. Sometimes we just need some time to ourselves. But oftentimes with dementia, that looks more like withdrawal from work. So they notice something's going on and something's wrong, and they don't want other people to notice. So they start to not socialize as much, stay home, kind of stay away from people. Developing very specific ways of doing things and becoming irritable when routine is disrupted. I always say this is, I'm type A. It's got to be this way. And that can be normal, but changes in mood and personality, if something's out of place, it really bothers them in a much different way because maybe that's the only way that they have coped with not being able to find that thing, and they know it shows. So communication tips, when you keep all these things in mind, is you want to treat the person always with dignity and respect. And we know this, but some of that is trying to recognize things but work through it without doing it for them or treating them like a child sometimes. Be aware of your feelings, make sure you're not getting upset or angry, or sometimes it really is we just don't have enough patience. And then be patient and supportive of that person. Try to let them do it, try to let them do the things for themselves as long as they can, as much as they can. Offer comfort and reassurance. Try not to criticize and correct just because they're doing it wrong. It's important to let them continue to do it. Try not to argue with them, especially with advanced dementia. They can't understand. They can't get there. So if they look at a picture and they misidentify someone, you're like, oh no, that's Uncle Jimmy. They still don't recognize it. So arguing with them about it's not helpful, and it just is upsetting to them. Offer a guess. So a lot of times if they're not finding the right word or that sort of thing, you can be like, do you think it's this or this? And that'll kind of help maybe trigger their brain. And then encourage nonverbal communication. And that can be anything. Like a lot of times people as they age don't want to eat as much anyway. We don't have as much of an appetite. And maybe that's just, hand to mouth to get them to pick up their sandwich and eat it, for instance, because they may sit and stare at the sandwich and not pick it up, for instance. The communication tips as far as like if you aren't familiar with this person, this is in public a lot of times, but even especially when you're within the home of that person, always come to that person in the front. That way you're not, it's not shocking to them. They don't think someone's, um, approaching them. It can just be their peripheral vision is decreased, so they don't see you until you are kind of right there. So coming from the front will prevent fear and startling people and increasing anxiety overall. It's important to speak clearly and be patient. And some of that is things, especially, if you're younger, we have a tendency to really speak up, we're just talking so fast and we have to really think, okay, I need to make sure I enunciate my words, speak clearly. And in part, it's because they take a little bit more time to be able to figure out what you're saying, but also it could be decreased hearing. It could be that they misinterpret increased speech cadence as that you're angry with them. So it's just important to really just always make sure that they feel that everything is calm, and that you're there to support. So even if it takes longer, and I know that can be one of those patience things, sometimes we're just trying to get something done, but they need calmness and clarity all the time. And then, that redirection is more of well, why don't we go to the bathroom first before we get dressed, or something along that line. They may just need some cueing. And it's just, as it says there, it's important not to raise your voice. Anytime you get upset and start raising your voice, it's not helpful for anyone, especially someone with dementia. It is really important to listen closely to them, listen to what they're saying, give them, encouragement as you are really trying to help them figure things out. They're trying to communicate. It can be very frustrating and anxiety producing when they're trying to communicate and we can't understand. So they seem confused or what they say doesn't make sense. And then we have a tendency to get a little bit flustered because we know it doesn't make sense, but they haven't put that together yet. So it's good to not cut them off. Just try to let them get to finish their thought. Don't rush them because they are moving slower for a reason, because their brain's just moving a little bit slower. Let them go at their pace and work through the situation best you can. Remain calm at all times. That's going to be a big part of things we're going to do. Is it really does require a lot of patience and calmness. So on communication tips, these I always think, these are things we should do for everyone, but with dementia, of course, the more friendly you seem, the more helpful they perceive you will be, and that you're not upset with them. So it's really just helpful to smile, make eye contact, make sure your face doesn't show the frustration that you may be feeling, even if you're speaking calmly. If your face is telling off on you, make sure kind of get the tone of your voice, body language, gently helping people. You may put a hand on an arm to guide someone, but it's important not to grab that arm and force them to move a certain direction, that kind of thing. Definitely be mindful of their personal space. And then one important thing that's on here that I think happens a lot and we don't intend to do it is make sure you're speaking to them and not just their companion. When someone has a difficulty understanding, a lot of times we have it, especially like at the doctor's office, we have a tendency to talk to the person who can speak for them and give us the information quickly. And it's just important to continue to speak to them, especially when it's about them and not just the person that's with them, their spouse or child or what have you. And then respond to looks of distress is really trying to interpret, even if they're not telling you something is wrong, that we're really trying to figure out if they're not able to tell you or do not want to tell you that something's going on. So you can, one of the things in public, this goes off over like if they're lost. And this happens all the time. I had someone call me the other day. His sister is living alone still. He's very concerned about her. She's getting lost. She lives just a few blocks from a Walmart and is getting lost coming back from that to pick up some things. But she, of course, will not accept any help. But if someone's lost, then it would be, do you have your driver's license or do you have some identification in your pocketbook? Do you, maybe their address is in there to be able to help them. Obviously, calling the police can be helpful in that situation, but they may be looking for their car in a parking lot. And I know what you're thinking. Why are they, like, why are they still driving if they can't find these things? But oftentimes, um, a lot of these symptoms are missed for a long time, and getting lost is one of the big ways that people eventually figure out that things are advanced quite a bit. Watch for signs of change and offer help accordingly. So every day can be different. For some people with dementia, each day can bring a change in what they do. Some people, it is same thing every day, day in and day out. And that can be personality, or that can just be comfort with trying to maintain their environment. Um, so how you help someone may differ every time you interact with them. And that's important to note. All right. I've got a black screen there. Creating a dementia friendly space. This is going to be like in the home. And in outside in the businesses is small changes make a big difference. So entrances should be clearly visible and understood as an entrance. And this, like I said, could be home or business, but predominantly businesses. A lot of times they're not clearly marked. Which door is the end door, or do you push or pull? And directional signage should be clear. Good lighting when natural light is not possible in the home, especially. It is very important to have good lighting. It decreases fall risk. It also, makes everybody more comfortable when, especially if they're unfamiliar with an area or can't remember. But in businesses, it's also very important to just make sure that they can see and everything is very, very plain and visible. And for businesses, this one is important for everyone, really. But plain flooring, not shiny and definitely not slippery, is helpful for anyone. Not something that I think people are necessarily changing, but I do think it's important that you not have a lot of things that could create an obstacle where they think they see something that they don't. And that includes in the home. Because oftentimes it can be confused. If they see something, it can look like I'm stepping off into a black hole instead of that's a part of the flooring, because sometimes those changes in lighting and or colors can create that look. Um, Restrooms, just making it to where they can go into a restroom that is clearly marked, or it's not marked one way or the other. It's a unisex restroom. It makes it much easier. Um, Design quiet areas for someone who might be feeling anxious. Sometimes they do just need to be, it's overstimulation. It's just too much and they can't handle it. And that happens more so in public, obviously, but even at home, if you have a lot of family around and that kind of thing, sometimes it can be too much. It's important to notice that. And then in large areas, it's important to have plenty of seating so that they can relax and sit down. They don't feel like they're waiting and standing up. That increases anxiety. Ensure all areas are free of clutter and arranged for easy physical movement. This is really important in the home. As we live in a home for 50 years and that kind of thing, we tend to get a lot of things. And sometimes, especially with furniture, we decrease the walking areas. So it's important to either remove some of those things or move them so that they're not limiting the space to be able to move around within the home. So much of the time, we have throw rugs and all these other things, and that clutter just makes it more difficult for all of us, but especially with dementia, it can be confusing. It is hard to describe what someone with dementia sees and feels because they can't really tell us, but we do know that things like stepping over into a bathtub, a white bathtub, can look like black to them. So oftentimes when they're unwilling to take a bath, it is not that they don't want to bathe. It is that stepping into that tub is anxiety producing. And so just knowing that, what we also know is that change from a step down or even just from one in a doorway where there is just a different color all of a sudden can make it seem like that is dangerous, or that can cause them to step up and over, or obviously you can get your toes caught on something like a rug. So it's just important to kind of clear everything as much as possible for someone with dementia to take all those barriers away. Inside a business, these are specific to businesses. And I'm including all of this because really it's important that we all try to help our overall environment in our communities. But these are a lot of things just, that will help. Things being visible and obvious, bold fonts, good contrast. Like it's really hard to read a white font on a light blue background. And that can be both vision and dementia things. But, black on white, people can read no problem. Contrasts, between a sign and a surface it's mounted on, for instance, will make it more visible. Are they fixed to the doors do they refer to, or is it just pointing in a general direction? That can be confusing. Signs being at eye level, not too high, that kind of thing. So it's just all of these suggestions within a business are typically there, but when you go in and you notice, signs for the restrooms should be very clear, exits should be clear. But I'm sure we've all been in a business where we're looking everywhere for the restroom, and the sign is up near the ceiling because it's in the back of the building or something, and people don't always look up. So it is so again, the problem solving becomes a bigger problem when you have dementia. So they can't really problem solve to go, well, I haven't seen the sign here, maybe I should look up. They're resistant and unwilling to ask for help a lot of times because they're unsure. And so making those signs where they in a visible area where they need to be. Lighting is super important, and natural light as much as possible. That helps all of us actually see better. And then deep shadows, pools of bright light that can create those. It's hard to tell what's there. It can make it look, like I said, a black hole, like they can't tell if it's a drop off or if that's part of the room. And then, of course, seating and quiet spaces within a business are super helpful. Now, what I'll tell you is we can't expect this at Walmart. Signage is good, but they're probably not going to, have seating areas for people too much. So planning some of this with a person with dementia is very important as well, because the only seating in Walmart may be a bench at the very front of the store. So it's really important to pre-plan if you are going with someone, what that might look like, how many things you might get that day. You may not do all of your grocery shopping in one day, for instance. It just might not be possible to walk the entire store. But pre-planning is very important. On the flooring, definitely avoiding it being shiny, highly reflective, that kind of thing. It just causes confusion. It's hard to tell what's going on. Certainly, non-slip surfaces, and definitely being well marked if there are steps in any business going in or out, because that perception can cause trip hazards, because it either looks like it's a step up and it's not, or they can't tell the difference because there's not a color change and then they don't step up. And this can happen to any of us. Avoiding numerous or unnecessary mats. And again, the black mats can be perceived as a large hole. That can be anxiety producing. Sidewalks should be free and free of smooth and free of obstacles. So that's part of our community job, is to report these things to the city, try to get them fixed. It's important to be able to get out and move around. Then color changes with or coverings rather, to indicate potential hazards. So if there's a sizable hole, doing something to cover that up until they can get it fixed to keep people safe. changing rooms, in businesses where you might try on clothes, make sure the signage is very clear. They're going to be, if they actually go into the wrong one, the male goes into a female or vice versa. It's just, it can happen. And if that signage is not very clear and they don't have someone with them, it's going to be very anxiety producing. Same with the restrooms. And making way out signs, because sometimes just getting in a bigger restroom, they can't remember where the door is. So that's very helpful that you don't see a lot, and we do advocate for that. Toilet seats contrasting color to the walls, so not having everything painted white, for instance. And then mirror locations. Sometimes people don't recognize their own reflection when they have dementia. That what their memory is oftentimes a younger version of themselves, and so they're now seeing an older version that they now don't remember. Happens a lot of times, just like they don't recognize their son or daughter, for instance. Um, People with dementia use landmarks to navigate their way around, both inside and out. So that's what they do. They just try to, how do I get in and out of here? So if we can do that, being able to have it interesting so that it just makes it more clear. Handrails and that kind of thing, making sure everything is well lit around stairs and um, are doors able to be easily opened? And this is a big one that a lot of doors are weighted now, and they can be very difficult to open. So the recommendation is no more than 4.5 pounds of pressure and that can be tested, and businesses certainly should not have doors that are harder to open than that. That can be limiting for a lot of people. Um, an undercover area at the entrance, if it's raining, that sort of thing. Corridors wide enough for those in wheelchairs and walkers. And then, of course, no clutter within an area that cause problems. So this is a practice discussion. For the business perspective, the reason I do like, we do have, the church and that part of business on with us, but also how would you handle it is if you saw a problem in a business that you thought could be improved for someone with dementia or an older adult. That's something to really consider. If you've got something you would like to share on that, if you've seen something, or if you've ever been involved in making a place better with a business or anything along that line, it would be great if you would share that. I don't know if we have anyone in the chat box, or if anyone wants to share now.
Yeah, so feel free to unmute or to drop it in the chat, and Amy can share it from the chat.
And we'll definitely take those questions later. So, did you have one?
No.
So these are the things that we kind of we want from the community. Turn your understanding into action. So as a dementia friend, I will get in touch and stay in touch with someone I know living with dementia. So it's important that they don't get abandoned, especially if they don't have a lot of family. Support dementia-friendly efforts in my community. That could be something as simple as calling the city to get them to fix something that needs to be fixed. That sometimes it's not fixed because no one's let them know. Start a dementia-friendly effort in my community. So that could be starting a support group. For instance, volunteer for an organization that helps people with dementia. Again, that would be there's actually quite a few. There's some smaller Alzheimer's organizations throughout the state. Of course, there's the association that does research. And then we are in Central Arkansas, but we do service the whole state. We have caregiver workshops in a number of cities and brunch and learns. And then, of course, our support groups that we partner with all over the state. Campaign for change. So by participating in local advocacy events, this is going to become more and more important as we have a population that is increasing numbers of people diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. Encourage friends to become dementia friends. Carry out a personal action. So being more patient when I'm out in my community, for example. It could be trying to take note of other people while you're in the community and see if you see someone having problems, struggling. It might be they can't decide or they can't remember why they're on this aisle in the grocery store, and maybe stepping in to say, is there anything I can help you with? Maybe they just can't get something off the top shelf. Volunteer to participate in a clinical trial. That has been really big with Alzheimer's, within the research of Alzheimer's. There is now some very different medications and treatments that are available. There is actually now a blood test for Alzheimer's that's called the p-tau blood test that actually gives you markers that can tell you. It's actually just a scale, but if you're low on that scale, then there's nothing to worry about, even if you have some of those maybe, and then the higher you get on that. But it's really, very advanced stuff from where we have been. Of honestly, it's a little bit of guesswork when we're diagnosing dementias until they get much more advanced most of the time. And then adopt one or more dementia-friendly practices in my personal or professional life. So that could be if you own a business or frequent a business or your church. That could be something where maybe you help someone go grocery shopping, or help make sure that someone who's not coming to church, for instance, because they have anxiety or have quit coming and they've been diagnosed with dementia, maybe offering to bring them or sit with them to make them feel more comfortable, for instance.
Hey, Kimberly.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry. A couple things that have come up in the chat. One, are you able to provide a list of the clinical trials in Arkansas? Is that something that's readily available?
It is. Absolutely.
Okay.
That is readily available through UAMS, and we can look that up if there's any ongoing right now. I will look at that, and
Okay.
I can email it to you.
And then also what's the name of the blood test that you mentioned?
It's p-tau, p-t-a-u.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And just as a brief aside on that, of course, it's not covered by all insurance, but it is a lab test. So it is one of those things where, if you did have to pay cash for it, is a lab test. This is not, a lot of drugs that you take ongoing, if they're not covered by insurance, can get very expensive. But that can be done at a number of places, some doctor's offices, neurology, that sort of thing. And then another big thing is to ask your doctor for a cognitive assessment during your annual physical exam. A simple one that they do all the time is called the MMSE, the Mini Mental Status Exam. That one is used a lot. It is just going to, it seems like a simple test, but you really don't know if you're getting things wrong. Needless to say, the clock test, if you're familiar with that, where you ask someone, can you draw a circle on this piece of paper? And they draw a circle. And then you say, could you write the numbers 1 through 12 on it like a clock? And then you say, could you put the hands on the clock at, say, 11:15? And so if any part of that is not correct, that is a very good indicator that the executive functioning there is just not the steps. It's too many steps for them to follow. So maybe they draw the circle right, but the numbers are all over. They're not around the perimeter, or maybe the numbers are all on one side. And certainly, if they have very advanced dementia, they're not going to be able to get those hands in the right areas, that kind of thing, a lot of times. But that is a pretty simple test to be able to tell. That is not one that's usually used in neurology and that kind of thing. But it is important to start talking about it soon, because you oftentimes won't notice the signs and symptoms yourself. And a lot of times you won't notice them in someone else, because we have a tendency to protect the people we love. So we'll say, oh, that's probably just normal. He's just forgetful. But noticing it does allow sometimes for earlier treatment, which can allow for a longer term, better life for longer throughout dementia. These are our resources in our community that I just have here just for what we're doing. I did include a resource sheet in that information I sent that is really covering about everything I know of in the state of Arkansas. That is helpful. The Alzheimer's Association does have a helpline that is 24/7 that you can call and ask questions. We're available, of course, during the day and that kind of thing, but we do try to be all over the state as much as we can and in person. That is, and then the AGEC, they do a lot of things for education within the state of Arkansas, especially at the local UAMS in Little Rock, but they also have a lot of things outside of that they do, like STAP and a number of other things. But they have a lot going on at any given time besides just dementia training.
Kimberly,
So
there was one question. If you could please elaborate on communication with a belligerent person with Alzheimer's.
yeah, it really, it's all on you at that point. It is, how do you kind of step back? If they're really upset, it's hard to get them to understand, especially if they're upset about something. Like, for instance, it happens a lot that maybe I misplaced my wallet and I am certain that you stole it. That's tough. It's a tough situation. Um, so, especially when you're a loved one, right? Like, you've got your husband accusing you or your mom accusing their daughter, and it does happen. And so that is a matter of staying calm. It's really hard not to say, look, honey, I would never steal your stuff. I mean, why would you accuse me of that? They aren't recognizing you for the person you are. They might not even know you're the husband or wife anymore. Or even if they do, maybe, they think you're a teenager now. It's just hard to know in their brain where they're at, and they can't communicate that to you. So it's redirection most of the time. It is, okay, I don't have it, but let's look in, and it really becomes, if where would they normally keep it? Sometimes they hide things. That anxiety and their inability to remember makes them think, well, I'll put it here and it'll be safe and no one will touch it. Then they don't remember where here is. And so then you've got to figure it out. And I had a patient tell me not long ago that her husband bought a safe and put, I don't even know what all in it, the checkbook and some things. Then, of course, he couldn't remember the code to the safe. They couldn't get in it. And he just kept doing things like that. It's really a matter of staying with it, not getting upset, and redirecting as much as you can. There are times when you do everything you can, and if they are that advanced and you cannot calm them down, you do need to call for help. There is a point where medical intervention is necessary. And that's if you've heard of Jerry Psych, when people call something Jerry Psych, those are special units within a hospital that is geriatric psychiatry that can help treat those things. And so sometimes it is, they've got unidentified severe depression or anxiety disorder, that sort of thing that maybe they didn't have before, and maybe that needs to be treated now. So worst case scenario, that's really where we're going, is calling. And that has happened. I've had to advise people, you're going to need to call for help. You need to call for an ambulance and call for the police, because they need someone that is perceived to be in charge sometimes, and they don't perceive you to be in charge anymore. They don't see the authority or understand that you love them and this is coming from the best place possible. If it's a stranger, they certainly aren't going to notice it. And the best thing is the safety of both people.
Thank you.
Yes.
The only other thing that came up at the very beginning, are you finished with your slides? I don't want to.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is the survey. So
perfect. If you could drop that link in the chat. I don't know if I'm able to do that. Someone had asked for that, so they could.
See if I can do that. I may have to.
I can just, if you'll
retype it. We can retype it.
I was
I'll
going
be
to
glad
say,
if you'll go back. I'll be glad to retype that into the chat.
I don't know if it'll let me copy it, is the thing.
That's okay. Lynn's got it. Are there any questions for Kimberly that I think we got everything that was put in the chat. But if there's any others, feel free to unmute and ask, or you can put in the chat and I'd be happy to ask. Will we get copies of the slides?
That's what I was going to say. I can send this to you, and you can, this is just a little, now that you've gone through the training, you are a dementia friend, and you can print those out and date them and put your name on them, and you can, have it at your business, that kind of thing. That's really what that's for. But absolutely, I can send you the slides as well.
Okay, that would be great. I think
Yeah.
a lot of great information, and appreciate that. Any other questions?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead, Jan.
So how, like, well, I'll just put it out there. I live in basically Mississippi. My sister's in Kansas City. Our mother's in Branson on her own. So we see, it's hard to kind of figure out, like, will this cognitive, she can draw circles, she can draw hands. It's not that far, but we just see little signs. So, like, will this blood test show up? Like, we're just trying to figure out where to start.
Yeah.
Because
So
she's not going to be happy.
yeah, no, and no one is. Yeah, but we're not happy when we get diagnosed with high blood pressure. You know what I mean? Like a diagnosis is the very first thing though, and it's the most important part because then everyone knows where we stand. So the MMSE is much different than drawing a clock, for instance. So there is testing that early on, if you do the blood test and it's not Alzheimer's, but say it's vascular dementia, the blood test is not going to tell you anything for that. So Alzheimer's is the only one that can be tested for with a blood test. However, a brain scan will show deterioration in the brain. Early on, you're not going to see that. So you're not going to have that atrophy of the brain yet. And so it's the toughest time is early on. So an MMSE is where that start is. And so there will be potentially some decline. I'm a proponent of letting her live on her own as long as she's safe to do so.
Yeah.
Safety is always the thing you're looking for in the key. Is she going to be able to cook without leaving the stove on? Do we have to worry about her locking herself out of the house? I've had that happen outside overnight because they lock themselves out of the house. They can't figure it out, can't call for help, can't figure out how to call for help or won't do it. Driving becomes a big part of things. Are they safe driving? Are they a danger to other people? Can they remember how to get home? And a lot of times they can for a long time because it's so familiar. Going to the grocery store and back. They're not driving cross country. So a lot of times safety is not a problem in the beginning, even though you may recognize some signs and symptoms.
Okay.
But diagnosis, that's your first step, is getting her to go to a neurologist.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Liz, for adding that to the chat. She put a little bit about the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. So gives you a little more background about that.
Okay.
Anything else? Well, we appreciate Kimberly's time. And like she said, we'll send out these slides. And on the email that Lynn sent out, there's some attachments that are really helpful if you haven't had a chance to look at that. I just wanted to mention that appreciate everyone joining us this morning and hope that you found it helpful as well. And we did record this, so it's going to be on our website. And so you can go back and review this presentation again, or if you know somebody who wasn't able to join us today, feel free to send them to our website. I will put our website in the chat as well, so you have that address. For those of you who this is your first introduction to the Methodist Foundation for Arkansas, welcome. We hope that you're welcome to, we would invite you to follow us on Facebook, because we'll be having more of these. We have these quarterly learning Zooms and webinars. And so if you're interested in that, you can go to our website and sign up for more information. Also find when we're having our upcoming events in the various areas and online, as well as on our Facebook. So I will put both of those links in the chat, but thank y'all again. And if there are no further questions, don't get off until I put these in the website. Put it in the chat. I thought I was ready for this, but clearly I wasn't. So 1 second.
And I will mention, if you look at the slideshow and you can actually see those videos, one of those videos is really great information on just the idea of how the brain works. It goes through it like it's a bookshelf, and that is how our brain works. It files information away, but then it gets to where it can't find the book anymore, can't find the bookshelf. And it's a really great little video. So if you if you grab that, then you can watch those videos. They're helpful.
Wonderful. All right, about to put in the Facebook one, and then, are there any other questions for us? All right. Well, thank you all again, and feel free if we can ever do anything for you to let us know. And we hope you all have a great day. Kimberly, thank you again. This was
You're
amazing.
welcome.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you so much.